Hello. We are back at it again with another video. And the previous part we talked about Dead Man, and then before that we talked about Die Hard Man, and in this episode we have Heartman. You know, there's just a lot of different mans. There's ones that are dead, ones that die hard, you know, and then there's ones that are just about the heart, you know. And in this video we're going to talk about the heart. Now Heartman is one of the characters that actually is in the second game confirmed. We don't know about Dead Man and Die Hard Man existing within the next game, but we do know that Heartman is going to be in that game. Now, Heartman actually has quite a lot of his interviews, but the subject matter in the interviews, not all of it relates to who he is. But I do want to say that most of what we're going to be looking at is going to be in the interviews, but if it isn't related to his story or related to who he is as a character, which a majority of it isn't really related, it's just related to the Death Stranding, and it has interesting stuff that talks about the Death Stranding, and not only that, but everything within the game. So even though that's the case, I think for the most part, most of it isn't about him, right? But if we do find stuff that's about him, we will go expounding and talking about it. But otherwise, we're just kind of gonna go through what he's talking about, what it means, relaying that information, discussing it, that type of stuff, and that's it, you know. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to also get all of Heartman in one video, so we're gonna try to go at a little bit of a faster pace to make sure that everything is within one video, even if it ends up being a longer video. And the previous parts will be in the description down below, top line of the description, right at the top. Easy to see the playlist for all of the lore dives, basically deep dives explaining the lore. You can just go ahead and look at them in the description down below. But that being said, we're going to jump into his interviews, read through those, relate them to his story, and then have a general consensus and summary at the end of just generally who he is and what that means to the story. So if you do want to just see, I guess you want to understand like just that part, you just want to see that part and get past the yapping about like all the intricate stuff, you just wanted the general summary, then just skip to the end. It'll be there waiting for you. But if you want to hear all the intricacies of like what he's talking about, different stuff about the Death Stranding, and then how he relates to some of that stuff in depth, then I guess just stay tuned and we'll talk about it. So let's get right on into it. So we start with Timefall. This is sort of just the first of the ones trying to start explaining concepts within the game and what they mean. But this one doesn't go too much into anything. It just says that Timefall was first recorded when the Death Stranding occurred, and that we don't know what it's really about. This was 3 years ago though, so they realized that when it touches things, it ages them, and then it turns into ordinary water having done so. So they felt, or they posited, that this process was stealing time, and they observed that when it was being or existing in only specific places, it was related to chiral concentrations, basically because the beach is nearby. Those are where the beach is the closest to the physical world, right? The spiritual and the physical are coming together very like closely at that point. But then he basically just says that maybe the Death Stranding, with it warping our perception of the passage of time, maybe it's not a bad thing. And because humans can conceptualize death, the future, all these different things, and those helped us as a species, maybe this is a new thing that can help us with this ability. He's very vague. He says it supercharges, or it could be a supercharged version of this essential ability. Basically change our viewpoint on time and how it works. Because of this timefall that's making us, basically it's losing time for us, right? It's almost like time travel, you could say, in a sense, right? So yeah, then he just ends it with saying that maybe the Death Stranding will end up being something that saves our species instead of dooming it, right? So it's kind of just saying that maybe he has like a positive outlook. Maybe there's gonna be something good from this. After that, he basically just explains in the next part, which is Necrosis, because that was Timefall. This is Necrosis in the ancient Egyptian view on life and death, also 3 years ago. And he just explains what the Egyptians believe, which is the, I guess, idea as like a thing behind what Kojima decided to make the game around. I don't believe it works actually. It's not the exact same, okay? It's not the exact same. It's inspiration, right? It's inspiration for what he decided to make the in-game story of Death Stranding be around. Right, is the idea of having, two different things, a ha and a ka, a soul and a body, right? And that the soul joins with the child in the womb and gives life to the body, and it departs upon death. Basically, in that sense, the body would be a vessel, and should the soul return to it, it will live again, right? That's the idea. That's the idea that's happening there. And that's how Sam is actually a repatriate, right? His soul comes back to his body. He's a repatriate. But then he says that what is observed in near-death experiences is that a soul is separated briefly from his body. But then he's basically saying that there's a process of moving to the next place. And the beach is, in a place that's in the middle of that. It's not actually the afterlife. It's a place in between that. I like to call it a kind of purgatory. But he says that it is believed that death is not to be an instantaneous change of state, but a process by which the soul moves from one realm to another. But this process itself has changed thanks to the death stranding. In the normal order of things, when death occurs, usually the soul vacates the body and passes into the seam, from where, through the seam, it transitions to the beach, and only then on to the world of the dead. So it goes through the seam, then to the beach, then on to the world of the dead. But after the stranding, a soul that has already made its journey to the beach may attempt, and how he explains it in the cutscenes in the games, that they may, almost like ghosts, right, where they may have some unfinished business. So if they have unfinished business, they might try to come back to this world, I'm guessing through the seam again, right? And it was hard to believe at first, but the process of necrosis provided proof of this phenomenon that was difficult to deny. It's why it's imperative that we burn bodies of the dead. The body must be destroyed to sever the link with the soul, because they can always come back, right? Only then will the soul be free to journey to the world beyond. So simply put, your soul and your body, of course, within the game, they're different, they are something where you can come back, right? So it's a way that technically within the world of Death Stranding, there's a way that you can just come right back into your body as a ghost. Ghost, I guess you could say, but they call it BTs. BTs are basically ghosts, right? So you can consider them a ghost, right? Within the world of Death Stranding, that's just how it works. It works in a very particular way with their own type of specific rules, but it's more similar to the idea of what the Egyptians believed. That's basically what we're trying to say, is that was the inspiration for this. That's all that he was saying here. So next we go on to chiral stuff, starting with chiral symmetry, and this is also 3 years ago. Most of these are for the new ones, or the ones we're about to get into. He explains the word chiral. The word chiral, Chiral, comes from the Greek, I think it's kir, Kheir, meaning hand. And then he basically makes a idea, like a comparison thing, where you compare your left hand with your right hand, and they seem to be kind of the same, size and shape. But then when you face them away from you and place one hand over the other, right? Like you're just like looking at them, right? You put them over each other. It's basically just like, instead of putting your hands together as a mirror, you're now putting them kind of as a mirror, but they're just kind of like the exact opposites, right? And they do not overlap exactly. Right? Close enough. I mean, they're kind of close, but not really. And then he says, but place your palms together and voila, match, right? So he's putting, and he's using that as an analysis or as a comparison to say, yeah, you put them together, good, right? They're exact, but you put them in front of you, do it the exact way that he said it, right over each other, overlap them, doesn't work. But he's saying that that's basically how it is within the idea of chirality. Yeah. So the state in which the mirror image of a shape does not match the original. So it's been theorized that BTs are mirror images of ourselves. That's what BTs are. They're us, but they're mirror images. They're ghosts. As we said before. Were we to exist in the same point in time and space, our shapes, as it were, would not overlap neatly onto one another, save in reflection. And when our particles meet their opposites, a void out occurs. A new form of communication we have devised utilizes beaches, which are akin to mirrors reflecting this world and the other, hence the term chiral network. Now, we don't exactly understand how this fully works, but we have to understand what the difference is between repatriates, who can come back to their own body, and those that can't, right? Like, if you interact your BT and you interact with your body or someone else's body, what's the difference, right? Let's get into the next one. The next one is just about Chiralium, and he's basically trying to preface that they're actually just theories, but he's saying that Chiralium, like dark matter, drawing a comparison, was born along with our universe and has existed ever since. Not in a dimension we were able to perceive. He's saying until now it is the beach that gives us access to that dimension, and then he's talking about it being able to be in a crystalline form, right? It's in a crystalline form, you're able to pick it up in the game, and he's drawing a comparison that this is a form we've seen it in and recorded measurable physical and mental effects on individuals exposed to it, right? They've talked about that previously as well, about people who were kind of exposed to that and had problems and mental effects. And it has reshaped our understanding of reality and proven instrumental in the formulation of the multiverse theory of beaches. Basically, everyone has their own beach, right? I know it says multiverse, but basically everyone has their own beach that they go to. to. And that's why when he's searching for his family, Hartman, he is trying to find them through a bunch of different beaches. And he gets a unique ability to do that. I don't know of anyone else who has the ability to just go to whatever beach they want to. But we know that he's able to. Obviously, he's not just on his own beach, because how's he going to find them on just his beach? He'd have to go to their beaches, wouldn't he? So he'd have to go to a bunch of different beaches and find wherever they are. Like, I don't know. There's literally so many beaches. How is he going to find them? the odds are not in his favor, let's be honest. So chiral matter is not affected by the passage of time. As far as these particles are concerned, none has elapsed since the Big Bang. Little wonder they escaped our notice for so long. Until man and BT first came together in a void out, left nothing but Chiralium in the wake. So once a BT and man, a void out just occurred, the first time that happened, that's when they were able to perceive it. They weren't able to even understand if it was a thing until that happened. And then he just talks about him going to the west on an expedition and learning more about it on the way. And that's how that one ends. And then we get into the chiral contamination 1 and 2. So in this next one, he is talking about chiral contamination and how it can actually not be very good for people. And it's when people are around that stuff for a long period of time. And it's basically chiral radiation that does it, which is emanated by the Chiralium, right? So this substance that's in a similar way to dark matter or whatever, right? That's been around for so long, it gives off radiation that affects people on a psychological level. And it says that people who are exposed to that radiation are usually heightened in their stress levels, and it can even be fatal levels of stress. Like, imagine that within a short amount of time, just insane amounts, right? They're just having a traumatic experience. And then it says that those traumatic experiences can alter hormonal secretions, impair immune response, contribute to heart failure, says Hartman, and induce strokes. Yeah, this is instead of the miracle drug, it's the miracle disease. The miracle radiation. It's just radiation poisoning. You're getting messed up over here. You're getting messed up. But the most common thing that happens, and the symptom that happens when you're contaminated, is you get poor sleep and you have nightmares, right? And it can actually progress and be even worse. And it can make it so that you have heightened destructive impulses towards the self and others. You want to hurt people. And those who have those, they call them Homoludens, the mad ones. So we understand what those are now, right? We talked about it before, we didn't know what they are, but now we understand. I think they're those things in the games that actually want to hurt people and hurt, they want to kill Sam and stuff. You know what I'm saying? The ones that are shooting at Sam in the game, you know what I mean? They're the ones that are shooting at Sam. In the case of some porters, such as mules, impaired memory and judgment has led them to develop an irrational obsession with their profession, hence the Homo Gestalt moniker. So we're obviously seeing there's two different ones. The Homo demons are the ones that want to kill you, and the mules are the ones that have an irrational obsession with their profession instead of with killing people. They're instead ones who want to steal your cargo. Mules want to steal cargo. Homo demons are the ones who want to kill you. Do you kill them back? Usually not, because if you're the right type of player, you're a pacifist. You just knock them out and you say, that's right. Don't you try to kill me. I'm Batman. I don't need to kill you. I just knock you out to teach you a lesson. That's it. I don't know. But either way, hopefully you did it that way. That's why I did it. But then he says that people who aren't really susceptible to this chiral contamination stuff with the radiation from it are basically people like Sam with dooms. And I guess we'll understand more about dooms later, hopefully. But yeah, doom sufferers are usually the ones that have that. I believe some doom sufferers are, Higs is a doom sufferer. Fragile, I believe, is a doom sufferer. There are some others, but those are the ones I have off top. But either way, yeah, that's a thing. I don't believe Hartman he might be a doom sufferer. I don't know for sure. We'll have to see. We have to see the explanation, though, of what dooms is, which, funnily enough, he most likely will explain. So we'll probably get to understand later in this video. Perfect. Hopefully. Let's go ahead and see. But first, we gotta get into the contamination 2 part. Just more information, I'm guessing, on that. He's saying that it can be alleviated using similar methods to those used to alleviate stress, and that is increasing oxytocin secretion through contact with other people and administering smart drugs and so forth. So you can alleviate stress by contact with other people, probably any type, and smart drugs, which they've done before. We've delivered those. But then he says that in recent years, a hormone dubbed Likecin, Likecin, known to mitigate the effects of chiral contamination while also restoring basic physical and mental acuity, I guess I say that, has attracted a great deal of attention from the scientific community. and Lyxin cannot be administered externally. It is secreted within the body, but only in response to external stimuli. It's said to be the hormone principally responsible for the positive feelings that occur when one achieves a goal, enjoys success, receives praise or gratitude, or any other form of a like from a fellow human being. Okay, well, they're just saying the likes in the game. Could you just make it up something to make it so the likes in the game mean something? Like, oh, when you get likes in the game, yeah, it's like helps, it's just like in your mind. It's like helps you and gives you like, it's a whole nother thing, it's just, it makes you so happy and stuff, it's great. Good one, Kojima. Good one. But then we have, it's still 3 years ago, the discovery of beaches and the concept of death. Seems like a big one, doesn't it? This one's also a little longer, so we can kind of delve into this one now. This one's a little interesting, but I'll try to sum it up a little quicker. And basically, he's saying that the beach is a thing that is created by, like, when everyone has their own beach, it's created by their own perception. It's their own unique beach, right? And Doom Sufferers gave excellent opportunities for study, he says. So a beach will look different based on how the individual thinks about it, right? It's made with their mind. So he's saying that it's a theory, it's a concept, right? But it's also a reality. It's a reality as it exists, but it's made through their mind, how it looks and how it works, aside from the actual way that it actually works, but how it looks, everything specific to their stuff is there based on their mind. You see at the end of the game that Sam is like sitting there for a long time and like stuff pops up and like talks and stuff. That's just it. It's a story thing, but it's also in his mind. But to simply put it, again, basically everybody has a different beach, and the beach is influenced by the mind of whoever is the beach belongs to, right? And it's linked to them, right? That's their linked beach. It's linked strictly to them. So then he goes and says that BTs are not animals. Animals don't have BTs because we haven't seen it. So animals don't have beaches. Animals can't be BTs. They make sense. Animals can't have a beach because animals cannot become BTs. That's the idea that he says here. And then he questions if androids or AI can have a beach, but he says because they have not been born, they haven't lived, and cannot ever know death, they cannot have a beach. He doesn't know, but it's a theory. That's all that's for this one. That's about it. It's longer, but it doesn't have as much depth as you would think. But either way, we'll get to the next one. The next one is the Evo Devo unit. This one is now a year ago. This next one has a lot of mumbo jumbo, let's be honest, which is in a lot of his notes, a lot of his interviews. But I can sum it up very quickly. This one is basically that they're trying to grow like a dinosaur or something from DNA. And they're able to do that through like a chiral printer or something. Like they're actually able to do it through the chiral printer. And they're basically just saying that, or he's basically just saying that they're able to reproduce things from incomplete forms. So he says the main point here is this data can then be fed into a chiral printer, voila, partial data yields finished product. It says ET, but maybe that's it. The tech isn't viable for everyday use just yet, but when it is, it'll be of incalculable benefit to our research and bring our reconstruction efforts forward by a manner of decades. Basically saying, we ain't even got it yet, but it's an idea. There's nothing there, let's be real. Maybe it has importance to the second game, I don't know, but so far I can't find a reason for that. He talks about Higgs particles now, and that's going to be interesting. This is 1 year ago that he talks about it. He relates something to something we haven't got into because we haven't explored Higgs just yet, but he's basically talking about Higgs and how he actually helped us to start, the expedition and trying to help connect people across to the West, right? And here's what he says. In the wake of growing violence by the demons, we were shocked to learn that Higgs himself was at their head. What to make of this strange development? Why on earth would a man who once commanded a group devoted to American Reconstructionism suddenly pledge himself to the cause of American destruction? And then he relates it to the Higgs particle, which is known as the God particle, because it gives all other particles their mass, meaning that without it, without its very presence, without it existing, everything would be destructed, right? So I guess he's pointing at an idea of Higgs being super important or something. Again, we haven't gotten into Higgs' story deeply, but it is a funny thing to think about. Or maybe not funny, but interesting indeed. Cosmic irony is what he says. But we'll get into it in later interviews about when we get to Higgs' part of the story. But basically, we're just going on and starting to discuss Higgs in this passage and how, why did he change, right? Why did he switch over? It's kind of like an overview, not really much in that overall. But the next one from that is Chiral Clouds and Timefall. So we talked about Timefall before, but now we have Chiral Clouds and Timefall. This one's a little bit of a longer one, so I try to sum it up a little more. Now in this one, he kind of just explains how it works, but it's summed up as in like how Chiral Clouds and Timefall relate to BTs existing there. And it's a lot of like scientific mumbo jumbo that's like created by the by Kojima. Just their own science, but it basically is trying to say that those areas based on this science is making it so that wherever the areas are that there's timefall happening, because of stuff relating to like gamma radiation and it relating to connecting to Chiralium and it somehow loosening the seams, when it does that, it connects the beaches, right? Something about like exacerbating minute distortions in space-time. Words and words and words. Simply summed up, where the beach is where the beach is. When you have rain and it's timefall chiral rain, that's when you close to the beach. And that's why they're BTs, because they on the beach. That's what they're saying. We already knew all that. They're just explaining why in some science mumbo jumbo that means nothing to anyone. But if you do care about the specific mumbo jumbo that I don't really care about too much, then it's called Chiral Clouds and Timefall. Chiral Clouds and Timefall. That's the name. All right. Go ahead, search it up. Chiral Clouds and Timefall. Search it up. Search it up. Search it up. Search it up. You got it. All right. But I don't really care, to be honest. I don't think that's really that important right now. We understand what it means, but we don't need to understand why it means. You know what I mean? Like the specific, all the sciencey science. I ain't really about that. This is not what this video is about, all right? But the next one is Giant BTs, and this is an easy one. Basically saying that different BTs have different jobs. Some of them cause void outs, some of them draw people towards them, some of them, you know, seek out humans, right? There's different jobs, you could say, different roles, you could say, of behavior that set them apart, right? They have different roles that they do. But giant BTs, the ones that you find in the game, the ones where, you know, you're dragged down and then a BT comes out of the, like the tar and stuff. Those are basically a bunch of different BTs together as one like amalgamation. And because the reason why they don't have the umbilical cord is because because there's so many of them together, they don't have like a beach. Like there's not a specific beach. They're just an amalgamation, because they wouldn't originally have their own beach that they're connected to through that umbilical cord, which, as we've understood with the umbilical cord, it's within the game, it has its specific stuff, but for us, the players, it's more of a symbolic type of thing. But yes, it does have a point. But yeah, it's mainly a thing where it's like this one, these big BTs do not manifest in umbilical cord, but the regular BTs do, because the umbilical cord is basically just saying, hey, you know, we have a beach. It's making it simple. There's, like I said, there's sciencey mumbo jumbo. We're getting into some of it, right? But let's simplify a little bit here and there. That's what I'm trying to do. All right, we're simplifying it. The umbilical cord just says, I have beach. All right, you know, let's just keep it simple. All right. I am living being. I have beach. That's it. You know what I mean? I have live, and I am connected to beach, and that's where I come from. I am BT. But when you see those big things that aren't like some, you know, little BT boy, little like ghost thing, you see those like big BTs that are over here touching you and stuff, going crazy, like trying to kill you almost. I mean, they really trying to go crazy on you. That's a bunch of BTs together, right? They don't really have like one beach. So yeah, that's what that is. That's all that one was really about. We're getting through them. The history of the Odradek, right? So now we're explaining the Odradek and I guess what it does. What's its purpose, right? And this one goes into like a tangent about something related to like a kid in like a spool of thread that he's like throwing and hiding it from himself, and then bringing it back as like a coping mechanism for like not being able to see his mother. Like it's a whole other thing. You can read it if you want. It's called The History of the Odradek, but mainly the point we're focused on is the bottom part where it says the Odradeks we use are perhaps not so different. These interfaces through which we experience our BBs' perception of their surroundings are not unlike spools of thread, a connection between our world and the other side, the living and the dead, human and BB. Simply, they are just tools. Just like the BB, they're tools. They're all part of the same tool. The BBs are the tools that connect, and the BBs can't really do nothing if you don't have an Odradek to relay the information. As you see when it goes beep, 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 pew, right? It shows stuff that's around you. If it's a BT, it's going to show up and make them visible. I guess he's relaying that to the spool of thread where you're seeing stuff that's visible, and then you don't see it afterwards because you haven't pressed the button again, right? So I'm guessing that's what it's related to. But yeah, that's about it for this one. The next one was recorded 2 years ago, and it's talking about those like jellyfish things. It's called BTs Come in All Shapes and Sizes, about those like big jellyfish that come at you and they explode. And he says that they are not something that really is the exact same as another BT. They're like a subspecies, and they don't actually cause a void out, right? That's a interesting, like, it's a very important thing to understand, is they are impervious to small firearms, and like you need to like explode them or something, right? Which I remember us doing in the game as well. And they can't cause void outs, like I said, and they actually don't seem to be like resulting from humans dying. So they're like unrelated. They're their own like thing. They're not like some human that's a ghost or something. But he's saying that we basically just don't understand it, and that maybe Sam Porter can help them with this or something. That's basically what he says in that one. Pretty simple. Next one is near-death experience, where he talks about the idea of a near-death experience. And I can sum this one up even simpler. He's basically saying that before, of course, in the game world, he's talking about before there were people who were just having these near-death experiences. They were kind of similar, right, with like the bright lights and it being kind of similar with just this like out-of-body, like euphoric type experience. Just very similar stuff. And he says that many had argued that these commonalities were evidence of an objective reality, of a place beyond life. If nothing else, they at least suggested that death was not an instantaneous change of states, but a process. The beach has since proven much of this beyond a doubt, and the dead rising again as BTs through necrosis demonstrates this process in action. The place beyond life is no longer a theoretical possibility. Its existence must be taken as incontrovertible fact. So that's simply how it is. He's saying that in the past we used to think that we don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know. But now that they've seen beaches, they've seen all this chiral stuff, they know that they exist, right? They know about all this different stuff. That's basically all he was saying there. And then in cave paintings and stencils, that's the next one, and this one is now 1 year ago. This one doesn't have too much substance to it either. The funny thing he says is, does Europe still exist even? But he just talks about, cave paintings and what they are, which we probably all know that. But how it relates is he's saying that basically saying that they were made by Neanderthals, cannot speak today. They were crude depictions of creatures such as deer, bison, and horses, interspersed with stenciled outlines of large hands. Some assert these are the signatures of primeval painters. Or is that primeval? Either way. But could they not also be depictions of BT handprints? Good one. Good reach there, bruh. Good reach. Next level reach. Could our ancient relatives have been trying to tell us something or issue a warning? Or is that perhaps one flight of fancy too far? Maybe that's a little too far. You know what I mean? That's a little too far. He's just making some random speculation. I don't know, bro. He's saying, were BTs like prophesized or something? Like, come on, bro. He's just yapping, bro. And the next one, which is called BTs and Void Outs, he just explains that how the gameplay works, right? You just look at the gameplay. He's just explaining what we see in the gameplay, which is that you're grabbed by hands, right? You're coming to contact with a BT, right? And they try to grab their target and drag them to a larger entity. So they go to you, try to grab you with their hands from the ground, if you remember. Then they drag you. If they actually get you, they drag you to a big BT, and the BT tries to consume you, and then a void out occurs. If they consume you, the reason why they have to consume you is they posit, they think, by the way, it's a theory. He has a lot of theories but let's be honest, the theories are most likely true. There's no reason for him to posit this theory if it's not true within the game world. Why does he even use it? There's no real reason. It's not a theory. Okay, we think this may be because this is the only place where antimatter is present within the entity, right? So antimatter only exists when you are inside the giant's body. You're consumed by him, right? That's the only way it is, right? Simply, that's what this one's about. Basically explaining why they do that. The next one is called Neanderthals Are Not Extinct. Interesting claim. Well, let's see what he says about it. And what you'll find, and what you've probably been finding, is the actual important part of Hartman's stuff is actually the end, because he comes to a conclusion. What he says before is usually just explaining things that we already know, or is already in history class. Like literally in this one, he's explaining what Neanderthals are. And he explains that, Homo sapiens, they came together, they have religion, they have connections, you know, they had stronger connections. They were able to, you know, build stuff like society. But then he says at the end, our DNA retains vestiges of our ancient cousins even now, because what they intermingled and they, you know, they bred together. You know what I mean? You could say scientifically, the scientific word, we breeded with them. You know, that's basically what they're saying, all right? With the Neanderthals. Neanderthals, that's what they're called. Yeah, with them. You know what I mean? So that's what they're saying. We Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, they did the thing. You know what I mean? Homo sapiens, they had their thing with them. You know, it is what it is. And that's why we have part of the legacy within us genetically. He had nothing else to say. That's it. That's literally it. What is he yapping about? That had no significance to anything, bro. I'm telling you, he's just talking. He's just talking at this point. So in this one, we're seeing stuff about dooms and other stuff. Dooms is like a superpower. When you have dooms, you have a superpower. You're like connected to the beach more for whatever reason, right? For example, we actually get it confirmed that Hartman has dooms here. He says that. He says, for me, therefore, dooms is not merely a biological change. I prefer to think of it as a means by which I have achieved a new form of consciousness. He's saying that consciousness within this one, it's a little interesting. There's some other stuff he says, but he's saying within the way that we've, you know, he says like evolution, all this different stuff, consciousness, and how consciousness is different and how we think differently. Yeah, but he's saying that maybe we've regressed, you know, maybe within the way that the Death Stranding has made everything, maybe it's become a problem now. Like we don't understand things as well. The beach doesn't really have time moving, and Timefall makes time move in a weird way. So in a sense, we don't really have the greatest conception of time as we used to, and we're like seeing different things, and our realities are different because of us, you know, growing apart and being more isolated because of the Death Stranding. It's warped our idea of how everything is working. We're all separated. That's what he's saying in this whole thing, and you know, I kind of understand that. But then he says at the end that our awareness of the other side will actually be our trump card in defeating the Death Stranding, meaning that maybe our connection to the beach, to the other side, to all this different stuff we're discovering, maybe that can actually help us. He's coming on to the same idea that he had at the beginning, that maybe it actually helps us at the end of the day. So that's what he says in that one. The next one is 3 months ago. Remember, that was Hartman's. It was called Hartman's Theory of Evolution, which is the one he was talking about. Where he was talking about, and it was a year ago, about his ideas. You know, always his theories, but his theories aren't really theories. And the next one is umbilical cords in the Devonian era fossils. In Devonian era fossils. It was 3 months ago that he talked about this one. And the next one is basically just about him like talking about his connection or what he believes. And it's just the first idea that he comes to, but it's about the umbilical cords being related to the Stranding events, right? Where he's talking about an animal or something that existed a while ago and it's already dead, and it had an umbilical cord, and it was taken out in the second big thing, like big extinction event that was related to like the big five, the Death Stranding, this newest one being related to just being like the 6th extinction event, right? So he's using this to kind of piece together his little theory of how umbilical cords relate to these extinction events. Someone summed it up, right? I think we just read that, right? Sorry, it's been a bit of time skip since the last time I just talked. But about the Evo Devo stuff we were just talking about, right? I know we were just about to get into the next one. But about the Evo Devo stuff, someone gave a really cool, like, simple sentence to understand what it really is. And it's related to what Hartman was saying in the cutscene about it. But he basically said, this commenter said, every so often something is born with a connection to the afterlife, causing an extinction event to begin by merging our world with the afterlife. Then the event ends and the cycle starts over. Someone else also gave another idea, and well, it's based on what he's talking about, right? It was basically just a better, I guess, simple explanation. And here's what it was. Extinction entities have the ability to merge the beach of every living organism. What this means is not clear. What is clear is that this would result in large numbers of BTs appearing on Earth. When a BT consumes a living organism, it results in a huge explosion called a void out. A large number of consumption events means the surface of Earth will be obliterated by a series of explosions. The extinction entities trigger extinction events not necessarily because they like or want to, but because they, under influence of visions they see, believe their respective species will go extinct anyway, and it's better to accelerate the process to reduce the suffering of a slow extinction. And in the case of Amelie, that would mean that she sees the extinction coming and she is able to accelerate it. right? That's what we're saying. Sorry, I keep taking big massive jumps, but you don't understand every time I come back to record this. It's been like a little bit. So I just went and looked at it, right? Made sure I could research a little bit. And, you know, we don't need to understand all of this right now because we're really just talking about Hartman and what he was saying. But generally, again, on the whole like extinction stuff, and like I said, we'll get into it later if we need to, if we're gonna talk about like Amelie or something, right? But when he was talking about in the previous one about extinction and entities, as I explained before, yeah, it's like extinction entities, they are chosen to, and they're given visions of the future to herald like the end of the, you know, the extinction, where everything comes together, the antimatter from the afterlife and the beach and all that coming together with, you know, the world, and it's meant to like make whoever survives stronger. And it's like explaining why different stuff like the dinosaurs with the meteor and like ice age stuff, why all that happened to those extinction events. It's trying to explain that in a weird way. We'll get into it, I guess, in the Amelie part, but that's just, I guess, some of the stuff I was looking at related to that. But we're not gonna go too much in depth into that unless he specifically talks about it. So yeah, let's just move on until we get to like when that actually matters. Which it might be soon, who knows. But this next one is called Bridgmantite in the Earth's Mantle. What's funny is me recording this, like it's taking a while, but for you it's like that, you know what I mean? For you it's minutes, for me it's hours of research. Let's go. And I'm still at it. I still have a lot to research. Funnily enough, there's a bunch there. And this one, it's like weirdly connecting. He has like a pessimistic view at the end where he's saying like we go like ashes to ashes type of thing. But aside from that pessimistic view, I guess you could say that the other stuff he's talking about is just like the fact that the tar, he's talking more about the tar, is related to Bridgmantite in the Earth's Mantle, the title, right? That's simply it, right? He's just basically saying that some of that Bridgmantite, which is just a mineral, I guess, that's found within the earth, and it's like very close to like, you know, the core, I guess. It's deep, it's really deep beneath the surface, right? It's really hard to even get any samples for it, and it has a bit of chiralium in it. So that is the reason why the tar is coming to us with the beach, is because of it has chiralium in it, so they're all connected. That's all I can really give for that, let's be honest. It's not really much. Next is about the Dreamcatcher, and this one is just talking about symbolic stuff, right? About the Dreamcatcher. It's not saying that the Dreamcatcher is real, it's just saying that, or that it actually works within the world of Death Stranding. It's just saying that it's a kind of like a, he's also using the words like strands, right? It's a very common strand. I mean, it's a common word to use, and that strands is like nurturing yourself, becoming a better person, you know, nurturing what makes you you and becoming a better version of yourself. It's some type of thing he's just using to explain it. So he's just using a lot of symbolism, saying that the charms of like Dreamcatchers are symbolizing, you know, the connections of the Native Americans, and, you know, setting aside differences. And yeah, that's basically what he's saying, is that in essence, strands can represent that which makes us who we are, that which differentiates us from what we are not, in the bonds we share with one another. And we're getting through these kind of quick because, let's be honest, there's not really much to each one of these. A lot of these are pretty short. So then we have Quipus. He's explaining what Quipus are, and as we've discussed before, the Quipus are, for example, one is what Bridget has, right? And he just goes on about like just talking about what Quipus mean and how it relates to what it's, you know, different ancient. It says Quechua. I mean, the Quechua. I think it's a Incan society. It's an ancient Incan society. Basically, it's just these objects were just, these Quipus were knots. This is getting corny. I'm not gonna lie to you. They're used to transport information. Okay, let's just keep it simple. The Quipus or Cupids or whatever is just information. It's the internet, bro. It's the same thing as it's related to the Chiral network. It's just transporting information through the beach and everything like that. It's just the internet, bro. It's just information. It's a way to connect. It's a phone, you could even say. Like that's it, bro. It's more stuff related to the internet. It's just another way to communicate, right? So it's like your Cupid that you have as Sam, right? It's just you connect through the network, right? That's about it. It's like a router. It's a router, bro. Now this one is actually getting interesting, right? The next ones are actually gonna be kind of a little more interesting towards the end here. This one's about Sam's return, right? So now he's actually talking about something, you know, a little more current. This one is 1 week after Sam's return, is when it's obviously dated. I haven't said the date for all these, I don't think, but I don't think it matters too much. And in this one, he gets a little philosophical in the stuff about Sam's return. It's after the end of the game where he returned, and it was after basically he was talking to Amelie, and he had to, survive for, it says 30 days of relentless searching. And it had been a month since he departed, and then 30 days of relentless searching for them. But he's saying that it felt like an eternity maybe for him because, well, time is different on the beach, right? So you don't know how it really felt to him. Even within the real world, it was actually a lot of time. Within the game, though, it didn't feel like a lot of time, though, so I don't know. Either way, not much here other than maybe explaining other things I guess we could get into. It has more explanations, but basically he says Sam has told us that the extinction entity, about the extinction entity, and how it granted humanity a reprieve, basically about Amelie, giving them more time, you could say, by disconnecting herself from all these other beaches that were gonna explode and all this different stuff. We can get into it in the Amelie's stuff and when we talk about EEs and stuff in a later video or something, but for now, because like I said, we're going through each like character, you could say, we're explaining the characters, so this is about Hartman. It's not about Amelie, okay? If we get into Amelie, we can talk about that, but for now, we'll just keep it to Hartman, and as much as we can at least. But yeah, he didn't say much else to them about it, and the last stranding has been avoided, right? That was something that happened within the end of the game as well, as if you've played it, right? Hopefully you have. And yeah, they avoided it. The last stranding, they didn't explode at the end of the game. They survived. So it's not obviously gone, but it'll happen at some point, just delayed, right? But yeah, it's kind of about it for this one. But his philosophical thing at the end is that, you know, when people in the future or like organisms like realize or find our stuff that exists, they'll just know that we're here, you know. Sorry, I can't talk today. He says all that matters, in my opinion at least, is that they know that we were here, right? Basically it not mattering if they understand who we were. So he wants to leave his mark on the earth. That's it. Now there is one right after this that is about the rest of his story, like the ending of his story, but we'll save that for when we kind of like summarize his story at the very end of this. And this one is, the next one is about incomplete information, where it says an ageless president. He's talking about how he has the umbilical cord and he's been researching and he's been wondering about how Bridget and Amelie, like, are they the same person? Are they not? Obviously it's confirmed that they are, but he just doesn't know. And he's like he says, I, however, suspect that the secret to Bridget's youthful appearance is to be found on the beach. So he's just basically positing that he doesn't know, but there's got to be some difference or some little, like thing here that we don't know about, which we actually discover at the end of the game. It's really, it's Hartman that kind of tells us about it to start, and then Amelie finishes up with the actual, like, full story. But we'll get into that when we get into Amelie's part in herself. We can understand that and explain that. But for him, he basically just says that he doesn't know, and he's gonna start finding out hopefully what that's about. Yeah, literally this is a nothing burger as well. Yes, we're gonna skip past an ageless president because he doesn't know the full story. He's like, maybe, I don't know. He basically, it's just I don't know quantified. That's a lot of his stuff. I don't know. That's it. He doesn't know. He does not actually giving any information. He's just like, okay, I don't know. Like us, basically. This next one is a little more close to home for me personally, but it's kind of, I guess, not 100% easy to understand. I don't know really what he's getting through or really explaining or what this relates to in the game, but it's called Da Vinci's Madonna of the Yarn Winder. Now, I don't exactly know what it's fully relating to, but I do know that it's like, of course, he explains it right here. He says it's about Mary cradling the infant Christ in her arms while he stares apt at a spindle onto which thread is wound, a spindle shaped like a cross. His mother seems more than a little perturbed. Did she perhaps have a premonition that her son would be sacrificed for the salvation of mankind? Now, I'm not putting too much into his interpretation of this, but basically the idea, because there's a lot of text here that's kind of just not really that crazy, but basically he's basically asking the question, now I guess I'll sum it up at the end. If Mary did know the fate that was to befall Christ, could she have intervened, cutting the string at a different point and liberating him from his burden? I cannot help but wonder. But as we know, the sacrifice needed to happen. So again, I think it's more not like that he wanted that to happen, but that there's an idea of motherly love, right? Now, what is this like knowing? He's just basically having an idea, like it's like bed thoughts. Wow, like what if, like maybe if she knew, would she do anything, because she loves him? There's some intricate stuff you can get into that, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this has anything to do with Death Stranding. No, we can maybe say it has to do with like Sam and Bridget or Amelie, maybe, or something to do with stuff happening, like needing to happen, right? Like what Christ needed to do. what Christ needs to do, you could relate that to, I guess, what Amelie needed to do, right? Like she was the extinction entity. She needed to do specific stuff, right? Like she needed, well, rather she had to, I guess, she ended up postponing the extinction, but the last Stranding, where technically the world would go kaput, literally, because everything would just go bye-bye. With all the void outs and everything, it would just go bye-bye, right? Everything would just explode and go, everyone dies. It's an extinction event. What do you think? That was supposed to happen, right? So I guess it's going along things of like supposed to happen and caring about someone enough to make it not happen, but maybe the idea of like, well, it's going to happen at some point and maybe postponing it. It's relating to that type of thing. Like, do you want things to happen right now or later? Knowing that they have to happen, are you accepting of the fact that they're going to happen? Just that type of stuff. There can be in-depth discussions about that otherwise, but I think overall that's all I can think of he's relating that to is the extinction events, right? I think that's the only thing I could think of that he would be relating that to. Otherwise, I have no idea why he's even talking about it. I don't know. He was talking about a painting, right? Is what I'm guessing. I think he's talking about a painting, pretty much. Because at the beginning he says, Leonardo da Vinci, that most gifted of Renaissance polymaths, once conceived of a composition that would come to be known as the Madonna de Fusi, or the Madonna of the Yarn Winder. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it's a painting. Yeah, it's a painting. So yeah, actually I just searched it up right now. it's painting. Yeah, it's painting. But yeah, he's talking about that painting, and I'm guessing he relates it to the extinction events and that type of stuff. So yeah, I think that's what he's relating that to. But as we know, that it needed to happen. So and both things need to happen. The sacrifice of Christ needed to happen, and the extinction event within the game need to happen. He's drawing comparisons to real life, right? So that's what he's doing, which is often what Kojima does. He like references things in real life in the game as though like they are real, but he changes a couple things, like the sciences, I guess. Usually he'll like have an idea, but then okay, here's the science of it, like relating to like the extinction events and what that really means, he could say. It gets a little confusing, but when you realize that, it's like, okay, sometimes it feels weird when it's like, okay, but that's not how it happened in real life. It's like, no, it's fiction. Sure, maybe the extinction entities, right, didn't really happen with all these like different fossils being like, oh, well, this one was part of it. No, maybe that didn't happen, right? But within Kojima game, that's what happened. The dinosaurs, extinction entity. Ice Age stuff, distinction entity. Every other thing, distinction entity. Like, just go with it at this point, right? It's fiction. You know what I'm saying? Just let them cook, I guess you could say. Again, the next one is almost a nothing burger. It's called Egyptian Mummies in the Pyramids. He's explaining how that all works and what they thought about, and how people were basically trying to find ways to conquer death. And now with the beach, they brought us basically the last sentence, as with all these, is usually summing it up because the rest is not really that important. But now the beach has brought us into direct contact with the world beyond. Our relationship with death must further evolve. The next stage in our understanding is upon us. So basically now we have information on the Death Stranding, on death because of the Death Stranding. It's that simple. Seriously, it's that simple. And I think this next part is easy to help understand the idea of bridge babies, of BBs. So a still mother's womb, even though she is brain dead, right, where the BB's mother is brain dead, serves as a crucial link to the beach. It's a liminal space allowing the developing fetus to exist in a state that is neither fully alive in the conventional sense nor fully dead. Because of this unique existence, BBs are naturally attuned to the chiral network in the world of the dead. They can perceive beast things, BTs, which are visible to most or invisible to most living humans. This ability is a form of extrasensory perception, essentially allowing them to see into the spiritual realm. And the BB's pods are designed to replicate the conditions of the womb. This is essential for maintaining the BB's connection to the beach and thus their BT sensing abilities. If a BB is removed from the pod for too long, it experiences too much stress, its connection weakens, and its abilities falter. But then if you have dooms, your abilities are amplified by the BBs, right? But yeah, in essence, BBs' powers aren't something they actively do, but rather a passive ability born from the unique liminal existence, which is directly tied to the brain dead, but biologically active still mothers. And it's a dark and ethically challenging aspect of Death Stranding. So yeah, but basically these mothers aren't going through a lot of good stuff with this, man. But it's pretty much what I said before. It's not exactly different. The idea that I had before said in previous videos was that the mother's dead. But the idea isn't that she's dead. She's like in a state of limbo where her brain is dead, right? Like her brain isn't working or having any type of anything happening there, but her body's still alive. She's kept alive. And we see that with how, right, Sam's mom was kept alive while he was being a BB, but then Cliff ended up killing her, right? Severing that connection, and now he's just gonna be a baby. But technically, you would say at that point that if the baby was still in the mother, then we wouldn't be able to use the baby, right? Because granted, we're using babies. It's really not great. It's not really ethically right. But they use it on the battlefield. That's why they put them into another pod so they can be transported around, detect the BTs. It's very odd. It doesn't make, I even said this in the previous one, it doesn't make actual sense that would make any type of sense that a BB would be connected to the afterlife in that type of way. Just because its mother isn't fully dead, kind of almost in a limbo, it wouldn't make any actual sense. But like I said, Kojima makes his own his own type of stuff. It's science fiction, okay? It's science fiction. That's how it works. All right, that's it. It's nothing crazy. That's it. But that's basically what he was actually explaining in this one. He was explaining within this that basically how it is. He was saying that we have the Egyptians is based on the Egyptians, where the Egyptians believe that where the man's Ka was in the heart. That's where it's mainly contained. So keeping the heart alive means that you're still alive. That's how they would kind of see it. That's you. That's really where you are in the physical sense. So that's why. The only reason I got to the BBs is because that's what it was explaining, and that was the Egyptian view on the brain that explained. The next one is the corals of the seam 3 years ago. I mentioned it this time. We're almost done, actually. And this next one might be relating to Sam and the Repatriate stuff and just the idea of the seam, but it's very confusing, so I'll give like a simple kind of summary. And this passage proposes a new idea about evolution. Instead of because I'm not going to read the I'm summarizing for you, all right? Instead of organisms moving to land because it was better, they might have been forced onto land by harsh tidal changes, developing legs to get back to water when stranded. It then applies this idea to the coral-like organisms in the seam, the place between life and death in the game, right? The seam that goes basically to the beach, and then it goes to the afterlife and stuff. It's just a traveling place. Just as early fish evolved to survive difficult land conditions, these seam organisms might have undergone a similar traumatic evolutionary leap, developing the ability to exist between worlds. The passage suggests this ability is a sign of profound evolution, much like coral's ancient resilience. I think that probably relates, it's just explaining why the seam is a thing, but also I think it's just relating to he's just saying that the seam is cool. He's just saying it's cool, bro. He's saying nothing. Let's be real. He's saying the seam is cool, bro. It's nice. I like the seam. We know what the seam is. And he's not explaining what the seam is. He's just saying it's cool. He's just literally yapping on, to be completely honest. But let's go on to the next one. And this one might actually be more interesting. It's called Repatriates and Void Outs. Yeah, it's just how it is. This is how Hartman talks. Hartman's cool and all, but a lot of his stuff is just yap. Let's be real. And despite the title being about Repatriates, he says in this that he doesn't even know what Repatriates even are. Like, they don't know how their bodies survive, right? He doesn't know how that works. But basically he says that there's powers that are becoming known as repatriates. And then when a void out happens, usually they call that an annihilation event. Basically, these events occur when matter meets antimatter and mass is converted violently and abruptly into energy. The process is highly efficient, though some energy is lost to the production of neutrinos. I don't know what that word is, but it's Neutrinos. Couldn't tell you, to be real. Do your own research. I don't know what to tell you, bro. But basically, a lot of energy is released and big kaput boom. Bah. But it says that it is different when Sam does it. It's a very small explosion. So for him, he doesn't really know why, but he thinks some of it actually goes to the beach when he's repatriating, and somehow his body survives and he doesn't know why. That's really all this one is about. That's it. And then he says, in another one, which is BTs are reaching out to us 3 years ago. This one, and it can simply be summed up as this, because we're going quick, super simple. He's basically just saying, in a lot of words, that BTs, the reason they reach out their hands is that they are yearning for connection in some type of sense. They're just reaching out for you. It's another idea for connection. That's why they have hands. They're reaching out for connection. Literally, that's it. I'm telling you, that's the summary. that's literally it, bro. And then we have another one. It's a little bit longer, but I'll summarize it for you. King Midas and the Chiral crystals 2.5 years ago for this one. This next one's a little odd. It's a really roundabout speculatory thing again, but I was talking about King Midas and how there was a tale of another person having the ability to do the same thing, but with Chiralium, right? The same thing. It's like instead of stuff turning to gold, it turns into chiral crystals, right? It's someone existing, but it never actually existed. No one they knew of actually existed. And he draws the conclusion and has like a weird thing where he says, it's remarkable coincidence that not long after I first heard of this modern day King Midas, I also started to hear rumors concerning the man wearing a golden death mask. Might the two be related? Who knows? Basically saying, that Higs is like the guy who can turn things into chiral crystals. As we know, Higs is connected to the beach and has been given his powers by Amelie, right? He's basically being used by her in a way, you could say. But yeah, really, there's nothing really there. Let's be honest. That's a nothing burger. Like, I had nothing really to say about that one. I don't even know why I mentioned it. He's basically saying, oh yeah, Higgs could be a guy of importance. Higgs is someone who exists. Shut your mouth up, bruh. If we find out that actually has some type of importance later, I will literally walk this back, but it seems stupid. I'm sure it relates to his actual story, but we haven't even got there. So like, this is all like not even great to even be looking at right now. Evolution, Death Stranding, and the Fear of Dying is the next one. I'll let you know if it has any importance. In this next one, he's drawn a comparison. It was 1 year ago. Evolution, Death Stranding, and the Fear of Dying, where he's basically just saying, literally, and this is as simple as it is. So death, us trying to avoid death, that's what made us evolve as a species and do stuff differently and survive and create different art, language, writing. Everything that we've done is a reaction to death and our desire to overcome it. We've wanted to overcome death, and everything we do is out of that. And he might be right. But that's what he's saying. Come to your own conclusion with that if you want to. But then we have one of the final ones. Bridges needs Homoludens. Oh, and wow, is this one literally so easy to summarize. Basically saying that there's a type of person that he's going to call Homoludens, and it's people who play. Deliberate or unintentional, they unite people, creating culture and shaping the world around them. Not through violence or laws or anything else, but through metaphorical acts of play. Basically saying, Sam connects people. Seriously, I'm serious. That's literally what he's saying. So that's about it on that. But we do have one more that I skipped over because it was basically finally talking about what happened to Hartman. And I'll just read it in full because might as well. It's actually important to a story. Countless trips to the beach every single day, each spent searching in vain for my wife and daughter. Such has been my existence, my fate, if you will. After all, if each person's beach is their own, then the worlds each of us inhabit posthum. Why can't I say this word, bro? I've seen this word so many times I can't say it. Posthumously are also unique. If that is brain rot. If that is the case, then even death shall not reunite me with my family. That is why I must search beach after beach after beach for any trace, any clue, anything that might lead me back to them. Death is not the end after all, and the past is never dead. Indeed, it's not even past. What? I've decided to give up my quest, for I have come to realize it will change nothing. I must move on with my life, and as a matter of fact, I already have. I've met someone. Her name is Samantha Spade. I call her Sam. Sam Porter Bridges. No. Sam Porter Bridges. No. Samantha Spade, a spirited Hispanic woman. You can imagine how frustrating it is to live life in 21-minute intervals. Speaking of which, what? He just said, speaking of which, and he ended it there. That boy didn't even finish what he had to say. But basically just saying that he stopped searching for his family and he started doing that. But now we'll get into a summary of what his actual purpose is. We discussed 4, but before that he went to help and find the different beaches to help find, basically just go find where Sam is. He went to search beaches, and that's because he can go to a bunch of different beaches, right? He had an accident within his childhood that made it so his family died, and it was big void outs, funnily enough, in the shape of a heart, I know. And his heart is also shaped in a shape of a heart, but not an actual, like, organ heart, but more of like a picture of like an emoji heart. I know it's weird. It is what it is, bro. Either way, I kind of like it. I don't know. I kind of like it. Either way, Hartman is someone who keeps dying and going back to the beach because he has dooms and he has this, because he died, right? But then he was brought back to life. I don't know exactly why, but when he died, I guess he didn't really die. Like, he went to the beach, like had a near-death experience, which we talked about before. And then he basically came back, but he saw his family when he was on the beach in that near-death experience, which was resulted from them dying to a void out. And he basically came back. They'd probably bring him back, right? It's assumed he was in the hospital or something, right? And he came back, but he had a heart condition. So he kept dying and his heart got worse, and he would be dead for 21 minutes and be in the beach for 3 minutes looking for his family. And he chose to do this every time. He didn't have a problem doing it. He chose to go look around and go to these different beaches. It was just part of his condition. It's just what he has. He has dooms. He does this. It's just what he does. So he kept going back and back and back and coming back every 21-minute interval for 3 minutes over there, right, in the beach. And he kept trying to look for his family because he wanted to actually die with them. He wanted to find them and go with them. died with him because they died to the beach. I mean, died to the void house, to the BTs and all the different stuff. They destroyed a whole city. Like, yeah, it was crazy. But he actually ended up giving up because he knew he couldn't find them, because all beaches are separate. They're all different. He couldn't find them in all these different beaches. He gave up, and it says it right here. And he went and found someone else. Right? He didn't forget about them or say like, oh, I hate them. That'd be crazy. But he basically just said, you know what? I found my friends. You know, the people like Sam and them, right? And he has a lot of stuff that he knows. He has a purpose. Like he's very smart, and he knows about all these things. Granted, I didn't go into everything that he talked about, all these specific stuff, but he knows a lot about a lot of things. There were some stuff we did get into, of course, during the beginning of the stuff about, we talked about Chiralium and all this different stuff. But once we got into like specific things, it sort of became semantics. He was just talking about a lot of different stuff. Sorry, I use that word too much, semantics, even when it doesn't really fit. But he was talking about a lot of stuff, right? I just kind of summarized it. But he did know a lot about a lot of stuff. I will say he did know a lot about a lot of stuff. I like his character because he's not my favorite character. A lot of people say they really like this character. I don't really care for him too much. He's fun. He's like a fun character. He has like a big kind of personality sometimes. He's kind of fun to be around. He's like a fun character. I like his character, but I don't like him more than, like, for example, like Deadman or something, right? Or more than Hartman. Right? I don't like him more than that. They have like more tragic and interesting stories. Hartman's kind of simple. He like explains a lot of things, but overall he's kind of very simple in nature and of his story, and he moved on, right? He moved on from all of that. I will also maybe link some clips down below if you want to go like check out some clips of him as well if you want to see that, but I'm not going to show it in its full entirety. That's wasting my time. You probably already played the game, so maybe you've seen it, but just in case for a refresher, you can look at some clips of him. And yeah, that's about it for this episode, right? I mean, we've kind of understood him, right? We didn't talk too much about him and his actual story. We talked about a lot of stuff related to him, but we did talk about some interesting topics that he got onto, and we talked about him. But most of his interviews were talking about a lot of other stuff that was actually interesting. I think a lot of it was interesting discussions that we kind of wanted to get into and talk about, and they were kind of interesting. We'll get into more of that stuff later, but the next one after this we're going to talk about is Mama and Lochne. We're going to do both in one. Mama and Lochne, we're going to talk about them, see what happens. Then we got the preppers, we got Higs. We're going to talk about Higs. We're going to make a video on Lucy. And then we have some other ones, some miscellaneous stuff. But then we have ones that aren't included in interviews. I think the only other character that the only two characters we're thinking about, because actually we do have one more after that. It's also Fragile. We also have Fragile. So Fragile is one. She has her own stuff. We'll get into Fragile. But the only one other than that, because that Fragile was going to be the last person we don't have, but the only character we missed that isn't within these like interviews and is kind of just around the bend, you could say, the only character we're missing is Amelie. So Amelie will just have to be the last one, and hers is like the most important. So we'll leave that one for last. So of videos probably after this, we have like we have Bridget staff too. We have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe like 8 videos possibly. If I make some of them in one, which I might do, then maybe I'll make one with like Mama and Lochne with Fragile in the same one, maybe, right? Then yeah, there might be actually less videos, but either way, we're gonna get through all of them, at least try to get through all of them before Death Stranding 2 comes out. If not, then we'll just do whenever we can. But if you're here for this, you're here for the rest of the videos. Keep it in mind, the rest of the videos will be coming at some point, as long as I keep living, you know what I mean? But I hope you like the free form type of content. If you don't, leave a dislike. If you don't like the video at all for any reason, leave a dislike. If you like the video though, leave a like. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hate comments are welcome. Also, comments talking about how good I am and amazing I am, go ahead, leave it in the comments. I'm good with that too. Go ahead. And with that being said, I'm going to hop on off because I've been here for about an hour and a half. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. It was fun. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Watch my other videos, the top line of the description. Let's go. The rest of the lore stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.